Bellydance Quickies. We have a guest today from Los Angeles. We have Adrienne. Welcome, Adrienne.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we're really lucky to catch you while you're in town.
Yep.
Adrienne is a dancer and performer in Los Angeles area and does a lot of traveling. And also she does graphic design, some of it for dancers and some of it for other clients as well. So that's what Adrienne is here to talk with us about today, is about professional graphic design for your belly dance business.
I really want to talk today about graphic design for belly dancers. I feel like dancers put so much energy into their costumes and classes and learning. Sometimes they forget about graphic design and why putting a professional face forward is so important. So I'm here to talk about kind of the type of photos you need, what kind of flyers you need and designs, and kind of talk more about why it's so important.
Great. Okay, so let's start with why it's important to have good professional flyers.
I feel like professional flyers, when you're putting yourself out there and you want people to come to your classes and pay their good money and spend their good time with you, you want to look professional and you want to look legit. And so I think having a really great crafted flyer, it gives this air of that you're professional, you're a person of authority. Instead of just some person who may be giving classes that you're not out of some other place, you don't know what you're talking about, you want to people know they can trust you and you know what you're doing.
Yeah, so if we don't want to be charging the lowest price, we have to show that we are worth it. We have to have the impression from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So one of the things that when you go to a graphic designer, they're going to ask you for to make any kind of flyer, business card, or anything are the photos, because they're really like the bones of everything that gets used. Mm-hmm. So tell us what kind of photos are most useful when you're working on a design project for a dancer.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize how important photos are for flyers. You can't just put, we're having a belly dance show and there's no pictures of belly dancers on it. It's not going to grab anyone's attention. You definitely need, beautiful dancers on there. So what I would definitely say is people send me a lot of times blurry cell phone pictures. I know maybe it looked like a great moody photo of you in the back and you're like, oh, with the veil everywhere, it's great. But for a flyer, we want to see your pretty face. We want to see your pretty costume. So when you're taking photos, try not to have photos where your arms are like out like this. Or maybe not one with props like your wings and you're like in your face, or it's hard to cut out and add you to the flyer. So if you're taking photos, try to have a clear, professional photo done, and maybe with your hands to your side or down here. Sometimes this is okay, but sometimes not, but if you can at least get one professional photo with your arms kind of down and in your pretty costume and looking up with your pretty hair. Those are my ideal dream photos people send me. But no, cell phone pictures, I know sometimes not everyone, they don't want to put the investment in, or maybe they're unable to. And so maybe they have a friend or a husband or a partner and take just a cell phone picture of them, doing this. Then sometimes they work, but a professional photo is so much better. Because then if I'm going to put you on a flyer with a professional, clear photo, and then you're kind of the blurrier cell phone one, you're not going to stand out as much.
Right. Yeah, and especially if you've got, say, a print application over a screen application, dots per inch on the photo or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially I firmly believe this, every dancer needs one amazing high quality photo and the original photograph from the photographer. So I can blow it up. And you'd be amazed, these gala shows, maybe you moved in, you're in this big gala show, you're one of the side dancers, they sometimes make these giant posters. And then, now I've blown up this blurry cell phone picture and they don't compare with the girls that have had, and the other gentlemen too, that have had professional photos taken.
Right, yeah. So there's lots of different kinds of pieces of what you would call collateral, different pieces of printed or digital, branding kind of things that a dancer could have. So, but, we can't do it all at once, and we can't afford to have someone else do it for us all at once. So in the order of priority, let's say someone doesn't have anything that's professionally designed so far, how would you prioritize what the most important things, most bang for the buck that they should start with?
Absolutely. If you can only afford to print one item, you should actually have business cards, no matter what. Business cards, pass them out. People say, oh, I want to call you, I want to book you, no matter what. Here's my information. Hands down, every dancer needs a business card.
I totally agree, because there's lots of times, I can think of even outside the dance world when I'm doing business with someone, and I say, oh, do you have your card? And they're like, oh, well, I don't have a card, but here, let me just write my number. And then the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, is this a side business for them? Or is this actually the thing that they do for work? Is this really their profession, or is this just their hobby? It makes me a little suspect as far as, how committed they are to this thing, and I'm kind of maybe going to hand them money to do something for me.
Absolutely. It makes you look much more professional, and it makes you look like, you have it together.
Yeah, when you can just whip it out of your purse just like that.
Right.
Like, yeah, here it is.
Right, instead of like, oh, I don't have, like, let me just put it in your phone, you know, it's like you said, if you're gonna pay someone to teach a workshop or, you know, come to a class or whatever, you wanna know that they're a legit person.
Right.
So I also want to talk about what should be on a business card. A lot of people don't know what to put on it. Should it be double-sided? Do I need my name? So what I would absolutely say is on the front of your business card, it should be close to a full body shot and just your name on the front so people get a nice pretty picture of who they're dealing with and the type of branding and the type of dancer you are. On the back, maybe just a smaller picture, maybe a headshot, and then it should have your name, your website, your phone number, and your email. And then I would definitely say you should put on there belly dancer, and if you're an instructor, you should say instructor, workshops, private coaching, mentor, whatever it else is that you do under the belly dancing umbrella, you should be listed there so people also know what you do.
So for dancers who perhaps do more than one style, let's say someone who does cabaret but they also do tribal or they also do folklore, do you recommend them eventually getting different business cards?
Yes, under some circumstances, I would absolutely say that. Depending on, like, say if I'm at Tribal Fest or whatever, I should hand them my tribal card. If I'm at, you know, say Kairoshimi Quake, maybe I have my cabaret card. It depends on what circles you're in. Now, of course, some dancers reach a level where people know they do both.
Right.
So I think that's fine if you've reached that level, but it depends on how you want to kind of portray yourself within the community. If you're here and we're only going to talk tribal, and maybe I only want people to book me for tribal things, I only want to give them my tribal card. But maybe if I do both and I want people to book me for both, you know, I think it kind of depends on the person, but I would recommend initially having 2 separate cards for your 2 separate lives if you keep them separate.
So after a business card, which is your primary thing to get your information to someone, what would you say would be the second most important thing as far as a piece of collateral?
Oh, postcards. Absolutely. Business cards are great because they can fit in your wallet, they have your contact information, they make you look legit, but a postcard gives more space to describe more about you and what you do. If you're a teacher, you can put your class listings on there and how to find you. If you do events or workshops, you can put that on there. You can also gear your postcards toward, if you're a gigging dancer, for clients. It's obviously gigging and the belly dance community are very different things. So if you have one postcard for your gigs, you show your gig stuff, your gig life, the product you're selling for the gigs. If you have classes and you're a teacher, you want to show your teacher side and your class listings and, you know, be more friendly toward, you know, maybe new dancers that aren't familiar with belly dancing. So, and you have cards you brought yourself, right?
Oh yes, I do. I have my cards, and I definitely subscribe to the having 2 different kinds of cards. Let's see if I can get these back here. So yeah, these are the ones that I use, and I love my postcards. Personally, I use my postcards as my business cards because I feel like it's a way to get more information into someone's hands, even though I do have regular business cards. And I chose a long time ago to just kind of divide mine up for who they were for. You know, so in the case of for someone who's going to hire me maybe for either classes or for performing, I have this one here, and I also found that when I was designing these, because when you're getting these printed, at least how I get them done, it's a lot more cost effective to get like 1,000 done at a time. So I found out that I didn't want to actually put my specific days and times of classes on and just put where to find the information for my locations. That way they didn't become out of date. And so I have that, and then I also do women's parties, and I put that because they're for the same audience. And then my other one that I use where I'm dealing with the belly dance community is my card for the Quickies on one side. Again, this one needs to be redone. Need more work for you. And workshops, because these are the things that the dance community wants from me. And so I found that keeping them apart has really been super helpful in having a kind of, you know, a lot of information readily at hand in an attractive format. But yeah, it's keeping them not too specific as far as details, but specific enough to get a lot of information. It feels like hitting the right balance when you're getting 1,000 of something done. So.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you're printing postcards, the setup fee initially it's a lot of work from a printer standpoint to set up the printers, get up all the colors, put the right paper in. But once they're pushing the button to print 500, it's only not that much extra to print 1,000.
Right.
So that's why it's much more cost effective to print them. But I agree with the postcards, and I like that we talked a little bit about knowing your audience. So that's why you have the 2 separate postcards or the 2 separate business cards. You have to know who your audience is when you're making the postcards. Is this thing for gigs? So okay, let's only put the gig stuff on there. It can be hard and very confusing if you make a business card for, I do belly dance classes, I do gigs, I'm also, this is also for people in the belly dance community hiring me for workshops. Your advertisements, just like a resume, should be geared to exactly what you're trying to target.
That's a really good, good comparison.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah, it's very true. For sure.
Okay. So I have a question about branding,
Mhm.
because this one I feel is kind of like a line I struggle with a lot personally, and I'm guessing I'm not the only person. So, when you're making, let's say even if you have materials that you make yourself, and there are a lot of DIY kind of programs and people who are comfortable to do it. But we want consistency, but we don't want everything to look exactly the same every time. So can you give us some guidelines for what things should be consistent with branding and where we get to be creative from one flyer to the next, so it doesn't look like when they take a first glance like, I saw that already.
Yeah.
You don't want everything to look cookie cutter.
No, absolutely. Like you don't want to make sure all your flyers are the same color. So what I would suggest is when you're kind of working on what branding is, it's your kind of look and feel. So like the One World logo back here, which I made for you in your studio.
Yes, this is Adrian's work right here.
So
my favorite thing in the whole world right now.
So we'll talk about this. So for branding, I would continue, even as you make different flyers, to pull colors from them. Never really deviate too much. Like don't use like bright orange suddenly. And also, it's kind of a modern looking logo. This isn't like a vintage, like Rococo, like old style kind of logo. So in your branding, I would always maintain clean, modern. So the text down here is very clean, very modern, and blue. So I would always try to put some kind of like blue and keep it clean in yours to maintain the branding. I wouldn't change the colors of the logo. Always keep your logo in the same spot on all your flyers. That's always very helpful. Sometimes in their center or below, but sometimes people like to move it around. But I feel like when you look at the flyer, it should look like it's yours. And how you do that is keeping similar color styles and similar fonts and similar general styles. So like I have one client and she loves the royal look. So in all her flyers we do like gold and crowns and all kinds of, and glitter of course, absolutely. But even though we change the colors a lot, we maintain this old school feel with gold and glitter and royalty and red carpets and stuff like that. And that's the branding that she keeps. So if I make her a flyer suddenly and I only used a crisp, like modern look, very clean with white, it would be off-brand for her. So pick a style and pick it. And I would say it's okay to change your branding every 5 to 10 years maybe. Some people keep their branding for much longer, but I know sometimes branding can kind of feel dated. But I've seen people that change their branding maybe too often. And so you want people to recognize, this is One World Dance Studio, this belongs to Mahin. And if you're changing it every year, it's just not going to become recognizable. You want to build a brand,
Yeah, and one thing that I found super useful in the logos that you've done with me with the studio and with my own and other things that we've done is having like a variety of different versions of the logo, and that has been super helpful for doing my own things as well as when I needed to give it to someone else who needed to print things for me. Having the black and white version and having the white version only and black version only. Because not every application is a full color application.
No.
And that beautiful full color will look terrible when it gets switched to black and white. It will lose all its design.
It would, and absolutely. And anyone, if you make a logo, like you said, you're not always printing a color. Sometimes you're just making a Xerox copy, or sometimes if you're going to print your logo on a shirt, you need every logo needs to be your full color logo. I would recommend a 2 or 3 color version of the logo, a black logo and a white logo. Absolutely.
So we know the logo has to be consistent. We know the colors are going to be consistent. So how about the fonts? Should the fonts always be the same, or do they just have to have the same kind of feel, like keeping them feeling modern? Can you use different things for different specials or something? Or should we always be like, okay, no, my 2 fonts are my this and my that, and it's always this?
I would say, actually, if you look at major corporations and their marketing, they are very strict. If you work with a major corporation, they will say we only use these 3 fonts and these 2 colors, and that's it. Like Coca-Cola, for example, will say that they only use that particular red. And so I've worked with corporations before, and they'll literally send me their styling sheet, and they are very strict with sticking with that. And there's no logic behind that too. So I would say if you're going to do branding, maybe pick 3 to 4 fonts, and you will only ever use those. And pick colors that obviously match your logo. And say, okay, these are the 6 colors that I will always only ever use. And so it's called, I call it a style sheet. And it helps kind of when you're working with marketing to only work from that sheet, and it keeps you on branding.
Great. Okay, so we know that we need to stay on brand.
Yes.
We know we need business cards, and we know we probably want postcards as well. So some of these, how does someone really make a good decision about whether they should do it themselves or whether they should hire it out?
Oh, absolutely, great question. So I think for when they should definitely hire out is if you're going to be asking people for money for an event or for classes. You want to look as professional as possible. So I would say class flyers and event flyers. Anytime you want to like a call to action kind of thing. So because you want to look professional, you're building your brand. But the times to do it yourself is like social media posts, which are great because you have to change those every day. You have to constantly be fresh. And as much as I would love people to pay me to make their daily social media posts, it's not financially feasible. So I think, if you're going to make a Facebook, like a Facebook post, you want to advertise it maybe like, oh, tonight we're going to have, this is what we're doing in class. Maybe, I think you're doing like elegant shiftatelli.
Yes,
yeah, it's not shiftatelli, so I saw that. Yeah, and like, oh, tonight, this next 3 weeks, we're going to be doing elegant shiftatelli. Maybe it's not feasible to pay a graphic designer for a 3-week class, or maybe you have your regular class, but you're going to change the topic. So that's a great point to do it yourself. Or maybe you just want to advertise that, hey, this weekend I'm going to be at this restaurant. If you guys want to come down, that's a great point to make it yourself too, because you don't want to spend money to advertise for a paid gig. So they should be advertising for you.
Well, that's another whole topic.
That's a whole video right there.
So for dancers who are going to be doing some of their own things, whether it's a social media post or something for a small event, what are some really good resources that you find are user-friendly that do a nice job with giving them a professional-looking thing at the end of the press?
Absolutely. There's some great apps in the iPhone App Store. And I've seen a lot of great dancers make some super simple things from these apps. There's one called Canva.
I love Canva.
A lot of dancers love Canva. Is it free?
Yes, it
okay.
is. I don't use it on my phone. I use it on the desktop.
Okay.
And it's really wonderful to use. Yeah, I'm a huge Canva fan.
Yeah, and it's super
There's
easy.
more out there than that.
But it's super easy, because like for your daily classes, you just throw it in there, you can make a flyer. Another one's called Ripple, R-I-P-L. Another one's called Typorama. And so you can just go to the App Store and just type in like flyer maker, and a bunch of different apps will show up. And some are for pay, some are for free. You can try which ones. But they try to be very user friendly for people that aren't to come from a graphic design background. They try to make it intuitive for, I will say, a regular non-designer person to use. And those are fantastic for your quick social media posts.
Yeah, I find that Canva is very friendly with that. I mean, I happen to actually have moved to the paid version of Canva, which really has nice branding features on it that we talked about.
Yeah.
And then I can like have my colors already sorted out, and things like my fonts are already like kind of pre-picked for me.
Yep.
I found that helpful, and it's kind of, I guess, for those of us who might want to venture off into other fonts, it's a reminder.
Yeah, don't venture off too far. No surprise fonts.
Yes, no surprise fonts, yes. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's see what you have, and tell us what you like about them, what makes them good examples. And I hear that you had a lot of fun coming up with a really bad example.
I did! I came up with
save
some
that for
bad
last. Let's take a look at some examples.
Okay, so here is just a regular Bellydance class flyer for mainland San Francisco. But what I like about the flyer is it has a nice, pretty picture. It's very clear. It's a professional photo. It's not like a fuzzy cell phone picture. It's not stretched. And the text, I've noticed a lot of people, they'll make the text all the same size. You want to emphasize the most important things, the biggest. What are we advertising? Bellydance classes, and then with the teacher, give me love. Then the when, so it's always the who, what, where, and when, and we'll get into why. So the who, and the what, and the when. And then always, I'm telling you, you would be amazed how many people don't put the address for some reason on flyers. Anyway, you should always put the address. A lot of people do choose to put on the payment for the class and how to pay in. Drop-ins welcome, I think, and then for more information, her email address. Because otherwise you just want to do the basics. You don't want to get overwhelmed with putting too much information on a flyer. You're going to lose people. And here's like another one for just like an event for Uncle Ned. It's the event name and the date. So it's just save the date, you guys. He's coming. and then just some basic information and how to contact. That's it. You don't want to overwhelm the flyer with like so much text they can't read it, especially once it appears on social media. It's going to be like this small.
Yeah, I mean, I find that there's a lot of times, like for advertising on the Quickies, I ask people to send me their things, and there's too much. And with something, I feel like a piece of collateral like that, a sign, is really just something to get people interested enough to go to the website.
That's all you need. I have people that want to put everything on the flyer. You know, I'm like, and I understand that, and I think that comes especially from maybe an older generation that wasn't used to having websites. But if you're going to have an event or a class, it should be in your Facebook page with all the details, like what to wear to class, what do I do? You know, there's all these FAQs.
The full schedule, every topic.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like people, but you should always have like okay, you know, here it is, the event name, the dancer, the event, the time, and then how to register. That's it. If they want it always says for more information, contact, and their contact information. So, can I show you my bad flyer?
Oh yes.
So I made my own bad flyer. I had way too much fun making it. I tried to go with everything wrong I'll try to hold it up a little bigger than everyone ever made. So you probably can't see this through the camera because it's so bad.
Well, yeah. I will include a picture of that somewhere where people can get a close look at it.
Right, because the other ones at least should be bold enough to see from far away. But so a lot of mistakes, I would say, non-designers.
Is that a mirror selfie?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's actually a bathroom mirror selfie. The toilet's not in it, but the door handle is. I also have, you can't see right here, but it's a stretched photo. I've seen too many times people try to fit a photo in a spot and they stretch it, and everyone looks stretched. The text is also super hard to read because I've seen people do before they put a dark text over a dark background. And once you get closer, you'll see it's so hard to read. And another mistake I intentionally made too is I tried to use illegible fonts. Okay, so Bellydance, I mean, you can kind of read it, but it's too scripty, and I put like a super crazy font at the bottom. It's super hard to read, and I think people try to get creative, and I understand that, like wanting to be creative at the same time. Like with the other flyers, like name really big, Bellydance really big, and then put the information in a clear, legible box to read. Don't try not to overlap your text too much with the pictures because it starts becoming hard to read. Like I'm cutting off my hand, I'm cutting off my leg, my bra here, my phone's in the picture. I love this. So I try to make all the common mistakes people would make, and so it's just very hard to read. So when you're using even your apps like Canva, I've actually seen people use Canva and do similar things where they've had a dark picture and they put dark text on top of it.
Oh yeah.
So if you're going to make your own, please, you know, if you use a dark picture and you're going to overlap, I know that's kind of the look these days where there's a picture in the background, they overlap the text. Make sure it's a dark picture with light text so you can read over it.
Yeah, and sometimes that doesn't even work.
Yeah.
There's some combinations of pictures and text where you just can't get a right level of contrast for things, and I guess that's the time to choose another picture.
It is, yeah, and I think legibility should always be the most important thing. And I know we want to be creative and fun, but you know, if they can't get the information or what the flyer's saying, it's a waste of time. So.
All right, I'm gonna put myself on the line here. Since I designed these, I'm gonna have you critique them. All right. We'll see if this makes sense.
All right, the video.
Okay, go ahead. Have at 'em.
Okay. Well, let's start with this one.
Okay.
By the way, I love this photo that we took of you. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is my very favorite photo.
Yeah,
it's how many times we had to toss that thing in the air. There's always this
I can only imagine. So this is actually, I think what's the most important before we're going to critique it is to talk about who the audience is. And this is for dancers to maybe hire you for workshops or private instruction. So it's important to know. So that's why I love this picture you chose, because it's a very dynamic photo that will appeal to dancers. Maybe someone who's new to belly dancing, they're like, oh, it's cool, but we all know how amazing it looks and we're attracted to that initially. Then when you have a big type, workshops. So I love that it's like super big. And then you have your logo, which is super important. I know you've
That's
updated.
my old logo.
Right, I know you've updated, but still, you're like, what is it, workshops? And who is it with? My branding, and there's a picture of me. And I love down here that you did fresh approach, like you have like exactly like, what would you call these details? Like
I
bullet
would say
points.
those are my whys.
The whys.
What
I would say ways to improve them though is, I know you have the cute little dingbat right there for each one, and I like that it separates them, but the text is still too close. And so I think a lot of non-designers, they still kind of put the text too close together.
Yeah,
I would try and separate.
paragraph.
Yeah, it looks like I would try and separate them more. And then down here, this looks great. I like that you've bolded your website. I think if I was to if you gave this to me and I was to amp it up, I would, this text is, text gets competing. This is the same size as this, is the same size as this. I would maybe make that a little smaller, make the workshops bigger, and make your picture a little bigger too. So, which other one do you want me to?
Oh, let's look at maybe this one.
Okay, cool. So this is your card that advertises toward potential students for your belly dance class. Maybe that people haven't taken belly dance before and you're trying to lure them in. So the most important thing when you're making a class flyer to lure in new students is it has to say belly dance as the biggest word no matter what. So you already did that. Belly dance, this is what's happening. And then I would say you always need a great picture of yourself as a belly dancer. People want to be like, do you want to belly dance? You want to look like this? Come to class. You want to do this? Come to class. And I like that you kind of put on a cabaret costume in there too. I wouldn't use a different weird kind, maybe a couture costume that doesn't look like belly dance. I know maybe the modern stuff. So always choose a more traditional bra and belt, I would say, to lure in new students. So that was great. I would say your logo is kind of covering you up a little bit down here. It's kind of overlapping. I would have pushed it more off to the side a little bit because the logo starts blending in with your costume here and it kind of gets lost. It doesn't stand out. You don't have that contrast. Also, same thing on the multi-level classes where you talk about the classes. It's overlapping a little bit and it's a little hard to read right there. So I would have made, put a little white behind it to make it stand out, and I would have made your website and your phone number in bold down there at the bottom, because things start to get things start to compete for your visual attention on a postcard. So when I look at it, I'm looking at you because as humans we always look at the dancer first, and we look at the big. Then the next thing we look at is the biggest wording here, but then my eye starts to compete with where to look next.
Yeah.
So there's not a good flow, I would say, where the eye to look. Since we see a lot of flyers with dancer information, or on the other class dancer information.
So with a pose like this, when you have, inevitably you're going to have some empty space over here.
Absolutely.
Would you use that space, or would you be inclined to just leave
I
it
would.
at the edge?
If I was given this to kind of rework, I would have moved you over to the side a little bit, because you're not dead center, you're just a little off, so it makes the balance of it just a little precarious visually. So I would have moved you over a little bit, and I would have put a smaller paragraph right there and put more of your information on the side, had you out to the side, and maybe they're just a cute little, a snippet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would have done. But overall, much better than a lot of stuff I've seen. So,
So I don't feel too bad.
No, yeah.
I was pretty happy with these, but I know that there's always room for
There's always room for improvement, especially, I've been studying.
Yeah, graphics is the only thing.
No, but I mean, it's still you still got the main points. You got the pretty dancer in there, and you got the word belly dance and the basic information, and honestly, that's half of it right there.
Yeah.
The rest of it is just frills and kind of trying to stand out from the crowd. Yeah.
I think one of the things that when we're making stuff for the general public that some dancers at least have a bit of a struggle with is they kind of push back against the word belly dance. They want to call themselves Middle Eastern dance artists or rock sharky, or they want something that would be understood within the dance community. But honestly, I feel like when you're going to talk to the general public, if you're not willing to say the word belly dance, you have kind of lost the attention, or not lost the attention, but not even gotten the attention of the people who you probably are trying to aim for otherwise. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, it's a Pandora's box of the term belly dance and the Orientalist view of where it came from, and that's a wonderful conversation to have and a very important conversation. But what I would say is, if you want the general public to come into the belly dance world and learn about rock sharky and learn about Middle Eastern dance, that's the only way you're going to get them through the door in our Western world. And what I would say, it is up to your responsibility to then educate them once they're in the door. And be like,
excellent point.
Yes.
Well, Adrienne, thank you so much for taking the time while you're in town and to give us lots of tips. So now we know how to think about our photos and our branding and what things we need and when we want to do it ourselves and how we should do it ourselves if we're going to. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of information that if dancers put it to use can really be you know, can help their business out, you know, let them charge more and let them come across as more professional.
Absolutely. It's super important. I hope it's super helpful today. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I always love to talk about design and why it's important, why everyone needs good photos.
If anyone wants more information, you can find Adrienne all over the internet. She's all over Facebook. She's all over Instagram.
I am,
She's
true.
everywhere.
I am.
And her stuff always looks great. And if you look at all her posts, all of her flyers that she puts up, they're fabulous, just like all of her other work. And so, yeah, you can check the box down there, and we'll put some links to where you can find her. And the business name for your design company is
Cottontail Digital Press, but you can just find me online as Adrienne.
So that's what we have. So I hope you guys take a look at this information, take it to heart, maybe take a look at some of your advertising materials if you are a gigging, working, or teaching dancer, and it'll be useful for you. So you guys have a really great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.